This is the Begin Within podcast, where we believe real, lasting health and fitness requires you to start inside before you work out. I'm your host, Nate Slegger, and I'm here to show you behind the scenes of fitness. You already know exercise is good for you, but what about all the other things in life that affect your fitness? If you're looking for extra motivation to get started or to make sure you keep going, this is the place for you.
Produced by BeginWithin.fit.
Improving health is about so much more than just losing weight. But I realize weight loss might be the goal that brought you here to the Begin Within podcast. That's why I wrote my latest book, 5 Ways to Stop Wrecking Weight Loss, to reveal the 5 areas that I see are most overlooked by the people that I work with who want to lose weight. Each one of the chapters in this free ebook describes that specific area that you need to focus on to improve your health and get great permanent results. And it also links back here to episodes of the podcast where we've had experts on the show talking about that specific area, so you can benefit from those previous episodes while you're learning about how to maximize the results that you're after. You can get your free copy of my ebook, 5 Ways to Stop Wrecking Weight Loss, by going to beginwithin.fit/ebook or going to the link in the show notes. Now is a great time to do a little multitasking while you're listening to the start of this episode. Head over to grab your free copy of my book, 5 Ways to Stop Wrecking Weight Loss. If you missed the URL, here it is again, beginwithin.fit/ebook, or there is a link in the show notes for you. Grab your copy, and now let's get on with today's episode. My guest today is once again Lynn Wagner. Dr. Lynn Wagner is here, and she's talking today about appetite. I'll tell you the backstory a little bit on this one. I follow Lynn on Instagram, and I hope you do too. And she was posting a few weeks back about appetite and all the things that affect our appetite. That is our desire for food, our hunger for food. And we are going to dig in to those things today. These are the same things that she shares with her patients to help them to improve their health, to improve their wellness, and their overall quality of life. So what are we going to touch on today? Here you go. One of the first things I think that is super important that we're going to touch on is how awareness is the key. Listening to the things that we're going to talk about is going to help you to become aware of the many ways that your life, things that are happening in your life, are affecting the way you seek out food, the way you feel hungry for food. And of course, we've talked about hunger and appetite here on the podcast before, but today we're going to have a really nice summary of the things that most often affect our appetite and a nice explanation from Dr. Wagner as to why those things affect our appetite. And awareness is so important. So when we talk about that, when we talk about awareness, pay particular attention so that it helps you understand why a conversation like this is so very important in you getting the results that you want when it comes to health and wellness. We're also going to talk a lot about stress. We're going to talk about emotions and how they affect appetite. I think that's a main key to understanding how life in general is affecting the way that we view food, the way we feel about food, and when we seek it out and why we're seeking it out. So listen carefully for that. And then also, Dr. Wagner is going to talk about the importance of sleep. And we've talked about that here on the show before. I think that we could not ever talk enough about it. We could never overestimate the importance of it. And Dr. Wagner is going to explain why that is and how sleep connects back to appetite. Here is my interview with Dr. Lynn Wagner.
Stress directly changes like your neuroendocrine system. So stress, we're supposed to live in a world where we have episodic stressors, meaning like short bursts of stress, so that we mobilize all of our resources in our body and we can fight that stressor, right? So the classic example is running from a tiger. We were supposed to be able to be stressed by something very intensely stressful and then take all of our neurotransmitters and our hormones and bring them up to the front as an army and attack that stressor or get away from that stressor. And then the stressor goes away and then all those things calm down and we go about our nice life, right? In modern America, we live under a constant state of stress. I mean, it's ridiculous the amount of stress we have, not just us, but our children, just the news and the financial insecurity and conflict, and then just the stress we put on ourselves with perfectionistic personalities and trying to succeed and, have this awesome life full of material goods. I mean, I could go on and on about all the stressors we have in our lives, but it's a lot. Even if you think you have a pretty good life, like there's still an incredible amount of stress that's just constantly going on around you. And so what that does is it changes our hormones and it changes our neurotransmitters to be ready for that stress, right? So your adrenaline levels go up, your cortisol levels go up, and then there's downstream effects from those neurotransmitters and hormones that kind of affect your whole self, your whole organism. And basically, to simplify it, they make you want to eat, because what do you need when you're fighting a stressor? You need energy, you need calories, you need sugar, right? So when you're constantly stressed, your body's going to crave that sugar. It's as simple as that. And I always, the analogy I tell my patients is just imagine if you were like a squirrel storing up all those nuts for the winter, right? The squirrel knows that there's going to be a stressor coming up. It's going to be cold weather and they need to get their food ready. So your body does the same thing. It's like, hey, there's stress. We need to fill ourselves with this energy. And so you're going to eat. And what are you going to want to eat? You're going to want to eat sugary foods.
High energy foods.
That makes sense?
Easy, quick ones. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that makes
Yeah.
perfect sense. Awesome. So, before we move on, I guess what is the best way to deal with that? Is it managing stress? Is it hiding all the foods you want? What would you recommend?
I think you probably just want to go live out in the country off the grid. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Would probably be ideal. No, I think it's just stress is super complicated, right? So I always tell people, okay, let's look at this like it's the serenity prayer, right? Like remove what you can. So look at your life, look at all the stressors and just cut out every stressor you can that makes sense. That's not going to hurt someone else, obviously. Like you can't cut your kids out, obviously. But cut out anything that makes sense to remove them or it, and then try to manage what is left. And some people are dealt with incredibly amounts of stress that they can't do anything about. I have patients who have sick children or special needs children that they're caring for through their adult life. So there's definitely stressors you can't remove. But then you can work on how can your body be resilient against those stressors. So can you do meditation? Can you do prayer? Can you do journaling? Can you do deep breathing exercises? Get out in nature. So all the things that will nurture your anti-stress hormones and neurotransmitters to try to combat that effect. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. My first thought, my wife and I mean, this has been years in process, but there was one point earlier when we were married that we were like, why are we watching these dramatic shows at night? Like,
Yes.
and we're pretty, I mean, we don't like our movies and everything are pretty tame compared to what's actually out there,
Yes.
but still we were noticing like it was adding some stress to our lives, and we
Yes.
were finding like we'd rather watch National Geographic or whatever, and sometimes that's too stressful.
No, I totally agree with you. I actually have conflict with my husband sometimes because he still likes a lot of those shows, but he's really careful now that if I'm around, like he always just takes like days where I'm at work or nights if I'm working late where he'll watch one of those shows because he
Yeah.
still likes them. But I can't handle it at all because my nervous system just like lights up in a bad way, and I'm like, I don't need any more. I don't
I've
need any
got
more
enough.
activation. I'm good.
Yeah, I also realized as you were saying that why I want to snack during the Packer games this season especially.
That's funny. That might
Makes
be,
perfect sense.
that's just tradition. I don't know about that. I think that's just like, so that's another, I mean, that kind of dovetails into, part of our appetite and appetite control is just, there's habits. Like
Yeah.
I live in Green Bay, Wisconsin. So I have habits of eating cheese curds at the bar and, I'm trying to think of other like built-in habits that we experience. Like, I mean, just eating a lot of cheese in general, right? There's so many habits that are just more tradition, our
Yeah.
holiday habits, our daily habits, that it might not be anything to do with stress, but it might be just something you'd be like, hey, that's a habit that doesn't serve me anymore. I just need to choose a new one. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Instead of
Um,
doing a big nacho tray at the Packer game and the cheese curds, maybe we do a veggie tray with hummus.
yeah.
Right?
Well, we just stop watching, right?
Right.
I'm just kidding. We
That.
can't stop that stress. That's necessary.
Right. No comment. No
Um,
comment.
what about let's see, other I guess habits. I know, when I saw your post on it, you mentioned the habit of letting yourself kind of get over hungry. I forget exactly, the probably the proper terminology, but just kind of tuning into like the ebb and the flow of your day, and how you're using food, or getting behind on what your body needs, and how that can really upset our appetite.
Oh, for sure. And I don't know what the correct medical term is. I call it hangry though. Um,
I'm
but
pretty
when you
sure that's
let
not the
yourself get to
correct
that,
medical term, but that's
no,
what we know what you mean.
no,
Yeah.
yeah. But like when you get to that point, I mean, who of us has not gone to the grocery store when you're just incredibly hungry, right? I mean, your grocery cart is a completely different picture than what it would look like if you had given yourself a small snack before you went in and a big glass of water. So that's been really mind opening for me, is just learning to be okay with a little bit of hunger. So I've gotten really used to like feeling more empty in my stomach, because I grew up in a household that was very much about like filling a lot, always being full and eating a lot.
Mhm.
Like we loved food. And so learning that it was okay to be a little bit hungry, but then also learning that if you get over hungry and past that point, it's going to definitely lead to making poor decisions. So it's just timing your meals and timing your snacks, and making sure you have an option in your bag that when you do get that little bit of hunger or you feel like you need something, you have some nuts or an apple or a glass of water or something like that.
Okay. Yeah. Nice.
Like people are driving around just working and they forget to fuel themselves. And then they get to that point where they're just like, all they have to do is go to McDonald's, get a Big Mac, because they're just like famished,
Yeah.
and they wash it down with a Coke.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
How about sleep? I know that was another thing on the list that
Yeah.
affects appetite. How does that work?
So I think I mean, and there's probably more beyond what I'm going to say right now, but for sure, sleep affects stress. So if you just go back to us
Mhm.
talking about stress and cortisol, lack of sleep is a stressor on your body. So it's going to cause you to eat for all the same reasons that we talked about with stress. The other thing is that sleep obviously makes you tired. And so what are you going to do when you feel tired the next day? And let's say you have a meeting or you have to go to school and sit in class, you're going to want energy. So you're going to do coffee maybe, but you're also going to reach for those sugary foods. So it's been proven over and over again that sleep deprivation causes increased consumption of high carbohydrate, high sugar foods
Mm,
and excess calories.
okay.
And I'm
Yeah.
sure there's more scientifically beyond what I'm saying here that I'm not thinking of or that I don't know, but definitely there's lack of sleep is tied to obesity and overeating.
Yeah. And those are probably
I would
some of
even
the
go on a limb
contributing
to say that
factors.
I would go out on a limb to say that sleep is probably the most important thing out of all the healthy lifestyle things we do.
You're not alone in saying that. Others we've had on the show, doctors, yeah, like, hey, what's the most important thing? Sleep. And I feel like there's a little
Yes.
bit of a shift, right, in the last, I don't know, 5, 10 years toward more sleep. Why do you think that is? Is
Great.
it just like more research on sleep? Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think it's the data. I think it's all the sleep tracking devices and the research that's being done. And just it was such a neglected part of our lives because, we're not awake, obviously. So it doesn't seem like it's that important, but they're finding that when you're sleeping, you're detoxifying, you're building up your hormones again, you're repairing tissue, you're processing mental stuff that happened during the day. So it's all like a reboot.
Hmm.
And it's boring. None of us want to think about that because sleep is kind of boring, but it's so important. And then it makes those wake hours just so much more magical, right? I mean, we all know what
Yeah.
it feels like to be rested versus exhausted.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I've come in clients I'm working with, just on the nutrition side of things. We talk about that, and a lot of times they're like, "What? No, let's talk about veggies, or calorie counting." I'm like, "Are you sleeping?" Because it's so important, and we know it
Yes.
from kids, right? If, oh, why is my kid so grumpy? They're making bad decisions. They're making everyone's life
Right.
terrible. oh, they just need a nap. They're just
Definitely.
overtired. But as adults, we don't
Right.
we don't connect that.
Right. No, I think I was blessed to experience the importance of sleep because I did shift work for so many years in the
Hmm.
ER. And I was able to see how it affected my mood, like my energy level, my relationships, what I was consuming to
Yeah.
like offset the damage that the swinging shifts were doing to my body. So I'm super
Nice.
passionate about that.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Um, how about I think one more that we could touch on is surroundings. I think we did a little bit, but what about how do surroundings affect our appetite? Is it just about what foods around us, or are there other factors that you think are important?
Definitely. Because if you think about it, when I work in urgent care, sometimes we always have a break room and, around holidays and different times of the year, it'll be full of donuts and cookies and baked goods and chips and stuff like that. And I'm pretty stoic. Like I definitely haven't mastered my appetite, but I've put a lot of work into it and I have a lot of knowledge. So I'm able to like literally not touch any of that stuff
Mm.
most of the time, right? But I look, that's taken a lot of time. I look back to my early years in the ER and we would just binge on all that food. And it's just because it's there, right? Or if you're in your house and you have the chips in your pantry or you have, just whatever unhealthy food, baked goods on the counter. What are you going to go for when you have that hunger cue? It's going to just be that much harder to resist it. So just surrounding yourself, removing the bad foods, and then filling in with all the good stuff and making it look really good. When you have kids, just like washing the fruit and cutting it up, washing the produce, carrots, cutting them up, having them out for the kids to eat will kind of get them to go for that food more. I mean, my kids would never, I mean, my older ones would, but not necessarily go in the fridge and pull out a carrot and peel it and then eat it, right? But if it's already cut up and it's sitting there in a little dish, they're going to snack on it. So it's just surrounding yourself. It's just the same as when you surround yourself with positive people, it's going to be uplifting and improve you. Food is no different.
Yeah. Nice.
And it's
Awesome.
difficult because everywhere, the stores, you look at American grocery stores. I had a patient from Europe this week who's been in the US now for about 6 months and she's gained about 5 pounds. And she said, but compared to Americans, this is no big deal. Cause she said, so we talked a little bit about American culture and our food. And she just talked about how the grocery stores here compared to where she's from, where she's from,
Mm.
it's whole foods, it's breads, it's pastas, it's eggs, it's meats, and very few processed foods. Whereas here, what's the majority of our grocery store?
Yeah.
It's
Aisles of
processed food
processed
and
stuff.
sugar. Yeah. So I mean, it's just we're up against a battle. We're uphill battle all the time. And so the more you can do in your home and your workplace to surround yourself with the more brilliant, vibrant, healthy food, it's going to make the world a difference, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes a lot of sense. So how, I guess what first step would you recommend if somebody's like listening, like this is all so new to me? And maybe it's around sleep. I know we talked about the importance of that, but if we were going to break it down into like the tiniest little action step that someone could have moving forward from this conversation, what might it be?
I mean, I think you have to not have any shame about it. I think there's so much shame people have about their weight or their physical activity levels or their physical health and feeling really bad about where they're at. And I mean, I've seen people in their 70s, 80s. I haven't seen anyone in their 90s make huge transformations, but I mean, through their whole life, you can make really meaningful changes and really improve the quality of your life, no matter what you've done before that. So no shame, first of all. And then second of all, I think I would recommend people just binge content, like find a couple of really good thought leaders that they
Mm.
trust who have a lot of content out there, like podcasts or books, and just binge it, listen to it, read it, start to like saturate yourself with it, fill your social media feeds with their stuff. And then make a couple things, make a couple small choices. So I used to give patients this whole plan and be like, eat from this list and don't do this and do this. And they'd come back and no one ever did it. It was just too much. So now I just tell people, hey, maybe go from 5 Mountain Dews to 2 Mountain Dews. Maybe go from a half pack of cigarettes to 2 cigarettes or 10 cigarettes, right? I don't even know how much are in a pack. Maybe just drink 2 more glasses of water. So like just baby steps are totally fine. And I'm sorry, I keep rambling, but like
No,
if you
it's
think
good.
about Mount Everest and you think about the summit of Mount Everest, you're not gonna you're not just going to launch yourself to the summit of Mount Everest. So look at your health journey as summiting Mount Everest, and then gather your Sherpas, gather your guide and your materials, make a plan, and then just put one foot in front of the other and realize that you're going to have to take a break sometimes. You're probably going to get lost sometimes. You're going to backtrack, but it's okay because you're always overall going to be on the right journey. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. That's what this is all about. Tiny steps, moving in the right
Tiny steps.
direction. What's the best
Yes.
way for people to connect with you, and what are they going to find there?
Thank you. So the best way to do it is probably just Google Lynn Wagner, MD. I have a website, it's Lynn K Wagner, MD. So that's where a lot of my clinic information is. I also have links to various social media channels on there and a couple of courses I have. And then I have some social media presence on like Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, LinkedIn, all the normal stuff. And then if
Awesome.
there's any questions, it's always best just to call my clinic because I have a great staff. So if people have questions about, should I work with Dr. Wagner? What does she do? What's the best way for me to interact with her? You just call the office and we can give you great information.
Okay. Awesome. Dr. Lynn Wagner, thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You know the drill. Links are in the show notes for you to connect with Dr. Wagner and follow her work. And I will say this, if you're somebody who loves Instagram, it's your social media platform of choice, I would recommend that you go connect with Dr. Wagner. I follow her. I was talking to one of my colleagues about this interview, and she was like, "Hey, I follow her. I follow Dr. Wagner. I wonder how she even got into my feed, how I started following her." The fact is, so many of us do follow Dr. Wagner and others like her who are they're really on the cutting edge of what's going on in terms of functional medicine, healthcare that really helps care for your health. So she's there, follow her, and just like she talked about, get in touch with people who are going to stay in your feed, stay a little part of your life so that they can continue to motivate and support you even if you're just watching the things that they post and the things that they share. She is an awesome resource. So go check her out right now if you're not already following her. Follow Dr. Wagner. You will not be disappointed. Links are in the show notes to her website as well. It's waiting for you there. So if you want to dive deeper and get in touch with her, you can do that. If you want to listen to Dr. Wagner's previous appearances here on the Begin Within podcast, then you would have to go all the way back to episode number 6. That was the first time that she came on the show, and our focus there was exploring and optimizing your lifestyle. Lifestyle was the focus on that episode. And then episode number 48, she also joined me for that one. And that was simple steps to make health a family priority. If you've got a family, if you've got children, that is a great episode to go back to and listen to tips as a parent on how to take your family and make health more of a priority. If you like some of the themes in this episode number 63 would be a great one to go back to. My interview with Dr. Adrienne Udeem, Why Exercise and Weight Loss Should Get a Divorce, was our theme on that conversation. And then also number 69, I think you would enjoy stress being such a theme of this interview with Dr. Wagner. My interview on episode number 69 was with Josie Warren, and our theme, Stop Stress from Hurting Your Health. So stress was a big factor in that conversation that I had with Josie. I want to touch back on something that Dr. Wagner talked about. As far as action steps, if you've been with me here listening to the show, so many times we have some action steps that we leave with, and very often they're very similar, right? So I want to dig into something that she specifically mentioned toward the end of the interview that I think would be a huge help for all of us. In the interview, we talked about our surroundings, our environment, and how it affects our hunger, right? The things that we have easy access to, what might they be? I want to encourage you just today, having listened to this interview, take a look at your surroundings. Take a look at your environment. I know you're here because you want to become a healthier version of yourself. That's absolutely sure. And I love you for that. But I think from time to time, it's nice for all of us to take a good hard look at our environment, our home environment, of course, the kitchen counters, the refrigerator, the freezer, what's there, what's easy access, what's out for us, what is being caught by our eyes when we're walking through the kitchen, as well as the environment at work, right? The office, Dr. Wagner talked about that, break room, whatever it is at work, right? Look around and take a good look at that environment and how supportive it is of your desire to become a healthier version of yourself. And probably more importantly, what small action step can you take right now to improve it so that it's more supportive, not just for you, but also for the other people who are in that environment along with you, whether it be coworkers or, of course, if it's your home that you're looking at, your loved ones, your family. Make it an environment that supports health. Make it a place that supports wellness and improvement. And along those lines, we can look at other areas of life, right? We can look at the people that we choose to be closest to, outside of people that are just naturally assigned to be close to us in life. That is our family. But take a look at, friends. Take a look at professionals that you let be a support to you. Sometimes we're investing, right, for that person to support us and be part of our lives. And ask that question, is this really serving me? Is it really moving me in the direction that is toward improvement, toward healthier? And even if it's friends, is having this person so close, is it really benefiting me in terms of improvement? Is it really serving me? Because we get to choose, right? We get to choose who's closest to us, especially when it comes to the services and the professionals that we work with. We get to pick who we bring into our lives. And if they're not serving us in becoming better, if we're not absolutely confident of that, then what are they doing? What are they doing there? So I want to encourage you to take a good hard look at just everything in the next day as it compares up against your desire to become a healthier version of yourself. And don't get overwhelmed if there's a lot to change. Just change one little thing. Take one step forward to add more in, add something good in, add someone in who's going to be more supportive of you, whatever it takes to do that. Even if it's just following someone like Dr. Wagner on Instagram, just take one little step forward in order to get more positive influences in your life and to set your environment up for success. As you're listening to this concluding portion of this episode, if you would do me this huge favor, take a screenshot of yourself listening to it, just post it to your stories, post it to your profile, and tag me in it. I would love that so much, and it would give us an opportunity to have a really nice conversation about your progress and give me the opportunity to support you. And if you haven't done so already, please, please, please rate and review the show, especially if you're listening to Apple Podcasts. If you're using the Apple Podcast app as you're listening to this, please rate and review the show. That helps me so much to be able to get this into the ears of others who will benefit. I want to thank you so much for your time and attention, for sharing a little of it with me today. I'll talk to you again soon on the Begin Within podcast.